Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of our podcast. And today I'm joined by Megan Malik, who is a therapist in Pennsylvania, who I have known for many, many years, who has just published a book. But today we are going to be talking about not just like publishing a book and doing fun things outside of the practice, but really about the journey of building a practice and how sometimes it's unexpected and how it can inform changes in your business as well. So Megan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here, Kelly.
Yeah. How long have you been in practice?
Um, 6 years,
6 years.
privately, more than that, but six with myself.
Yeah. And then you were working in other places before that,
I
right?
was working in community-based mental health
And
before setting.
and when you started your practice, what was your focus?
Premarital couples
Mhm.
and because of my wedding or my uh, ministry background, I did premarital and personalized weddings, and I also did grief work and funerals
Yes.
because I kind of that component to it.
It's kind of that minister side of you kind of combined with the
Yes.
therapist side.
Yeah, and that was sort of how it started, and then it evolved into a lot of, therapy for professional caregivers, burnout, self-care, secondary trauma,
Hmm.
and
And
kind of the
how,
grace that goes with that,
yeah.
so,
I was the caregiving a more recent thing, or you were already doing that before life happened?
I was doing that before life happened. Now it actually it's evolved in a whole other way.
Yeah.
Over COVID, so I went full-time private practice 6 months before COVID.
Yes, I remember.
And so my caseload started to shift like everybody's did.
Mhm.
And a lot of premaritals, we did counseling, but we're kind of putting things on hold. And so I started to get an influx of social workers, nurses, teachers,
Mhm.
um, kind of. And so the practice grew from that. And then I was starting to lead groups and doing some fun and creative things, actually, with
Mhm.
it, kind of
Well,
its own way.
and so I want you to share the story of how the practice has evolved and shifted as life has happened, because I think your story is not, not, I think there are other people who are faced with some of the challenges that you've been faced with.
Yeah. So in the winter of 2022, I was actually like super charged up to take some of these next level steps with the practice in terms of branching out, adding more developed group programming related to burnout with caregivers and professional caregivers. And then my mother unexpectedly died,
Mhm.
and my father became ill and then died quickly thereafter. So all this is to say, I was shifting from I think I want to do these things to like, okay, how do I keep it together? What's appropriate? I will say, Kelly, because of having been part of the Zinnia Me community, I actually had my own emergency plan. Like I
Mhm.
had things. And so I was able to shift and function in my practice and very baseline sustain while deploying and feeling like I could function in that way.
Yeah.
Um, and so I kind of navigated thinking like, okay, I'm going to try to come back. I was also then executing both of my parents' estates at the same time. And since
Mhm.
their deaths like planned, kind of what I say to people is, when somebody dies and you've journeyed with them through a slow Alzheimer's, dementia, one of the longer deaths, by the time that they die, what remains is often small.
Mm.
It doesn't grief is not there. It just means the practical things have slowly been resolved while they've been alive
Right.
and you've been doing. When you lose a person suddenly, unexpectedly, and they're living a full life, they leave a full life.
Mhm.
Then that needs to be disentangled and resolved and dissolved and distributed. Um, anyway, so I was trying to want to return to private practice like it was, but having too many tasks to really do that well. So I was navigating part-time private practice and the executing role. And then when I was really ready to come back more full-time, my practice didn't want to be the same.
Mm.
Like what to grow from me I was different.
Mm.
The therapist in me is different. And although I'd done additional training, I was a pastor first, then MFT. I'd done additional training with David Kessler on grief and loss. Like I did funerals and combined that. I did not know about all that is required of the bereaved to settle someone's affairs.
You're right.
Like I've never thought to like ask somebody to bring their to-do list into a session and like talk with them about what happens when they go to the bank to like close and maybe even ask to like put their dead person on the phone because that happens. I didn't even know that that happened. I was asking questions more about like their eating, their sleeping, where were they turning for support, really looking at like alcohol use, maybe other steps. And so over time, as I started to say, okay, I think my practice wants to be different and it wants to be broader. And I want to use a model that gives me a little more freedom, maybe, than the traditional mental health practice. So actually, I'm not operating a traditional mental health practice anymore, i.e., I'm not submitting to insurance, I'm not offering any of that. I don't call what I do therapy uh, because also I don't see grief as a disorder. To be a very natural process, a very spiritual process. So I've brought in my ministry background, some of my therapy stuff, and all the practical. And I walk with people with the to-do list, as well as all of the emotions that come up. And we pause when we need. And I do brain spotting also. So we might brain spot together. We might do some deep breathing together. We might, if people are open to it, pray together. And so the practice kind of told me I want to be different. I want to integrate what you've been through. And I want to do that as a way that you meet people where they are, that you incorporate the wonderful mental health background that you have, but that you doing that in the same way.
We've been doing kind of, in addition to success stories, I've been doing interviews like this one, talking about creating practices that are more outside of the box, outside of the traditional. And in part, some of that has to do with the way the economy is shifting, the way the landscape is shifting as tech companies come in. I think that that what happens is that the more that like corporations, capitalism comes in and tries to oppress, we have to get out from underneath that in order to thrive. And what I love is like trauma and those kinds of things don't thrive well under those oppressive factors. And so like to be listening to your business, which isn't in and of itself a part of you, right? Listening to your parts and responding to them with compassion allows you to shift a system that's more sustaining for you. If this system is broken, how do we create our own system, right? That really does sustain us.
Well, and I love that you're saying that. I think because of the timing of the deaths of my parents, I mean, I did enough to get by in 2022, but I was kind of really being ready to more re-enter summer 2023 was when I was like, all right, I'm ready to ramp up again. The field had shifted. And in the ways that you're talking about with technology, capitalism, the amount of paperwork, even like for an intake or even to get reimbursed. And I was like, this is like, I feel like I can't even breathe here. And I mean, I kept up with it a little bit, but to like really be considering like re-emerging. And I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Can you talk a little bit about that when you say my practice was saying it wanted? Can you talk about what that process was like or that conversation with yourself looked like? Like, how did that show up?
Well, I write, so I journal a lot. And like sometimes I will envision that the practice is its own thing and it will, like, we write back and forth to each other.
Right.
Helps me tap into that part of myself. I meditate, I pray, I listen. Like if I a little and I'm like, okay, is this really here? So it started with that. And then I widened and I have what's called a spiritual director, which kind of helps you listen for spirit and guide in that like a shaman, more of a shamanistic energy like practice.
I've had a
Uh,
spiritual director before. Yeah.
yeah. So, and she's known me a very long time. And so when this started to come forward, I was like, am I running from myself or am I listening to wisdom that's coming forth from me?
Mm-hmm.
And we spent sessions with that. And it seemed like, no, something is wanting to be birthed
Mm-hmm.
and it's wanting to be released.
Right.
Actually, I also wrote a eulogy for my old version of the practice
Um,
because thank the well for
mhm.
all that it gave me and life that it lived, the life it lived in me, through me, the people that it helped. And I just wanted to bless it and release it. So
Mhm.
that was the, all kind of what was happening behind the scenes.
I
Um,
think that that brings up a beautiful point that when we are stepping into something new, when we are stepping into our creation, we're also closing the creation on something else. And there is a grief in that. And I really think sometimes, especially culturally, we push that off like, well, instead of really spending time to feel it and to thank it for what it was and how it got us to here, whatever that next iteration is. I think that's really beautiful. I I feel like a lot of times the burnout that we have in our practices is because we're fighting against these systems instead of stepping away from them, and saying, okay, what do I want instead? Like, I don't want to be under here. It's not healthy for me. How has have what has it been like to step into this new iteration? What has been challenging for you and what has been like most easeful for you or what has helped you?
oh, that is a really, really good question. The ease has been that, oh my gosh, well, I feel sometimes fear about making a move, but when I feel into that and sit with it, it's conditioning from having served in the system for so long.
Mhm.
Like it's not real, if that makes any sense. I
It's
mean,
not
it's real
yours.
in me.
Yeah, but it's
Like
not
I'm
yours.
not me, but it's not mine, and it's not a real rule. It's like a human made rule.
Yeah.
And it's not about ethics or integrity. Those are two things that I really value. So that's been a challenge, but the gift has been the creativity that I'm just able to do, the publishing the book, the making the new connections, the speaking on stage, the you know, what was I going to say? I'm actually working with a business owner next Friday. I did a talk for a women's networking group here about how kind of the women who are the list often embody it, and we don't do a great job of sharing with our loved ones how to like navigate. And where does that come from? And how technology has inadvertently, I think, made it difficult because there's not like a paper trail anymore. It's all on a phone and like, here are some small steps. And she was like, do you have anything like this for business? I have a succession plan, but I have nothing for how to deal with my clients. And
Mhm.
my clients are important to me. Like the higher level is taken care of, but you're like, you're really talking about the practical. I was like, yes, because that
Mhm.
is what I think is missing. And so I was like, I don't know, I've never done it. You want to do a beta with me? And I'll just come over. And I was like, I'll bring over some of my things. And this is what I'm thinking. And
Mhm.
so like next Friday, I'm doing a beta. I'm calling SOL solopreneur
Mhm.
session. Bring out of her. She has such a clear sense of who she works with and who she is and what she does. Like, how can we then tie that to what it would look like for her to leave well,
Mhm.
even if unplanned leaving or a faster leaving than she would
Yeah.
like?
Yeah.
And so I never would have felt the freedom, Kelly, to
Mhm.
even offer, like,
To be creative.
to be
Yeah.
creative and like, hey, I haven't actually designed this yet. Are you willing to just like experiment with me and see how it goes and
Yeah.
like see if there's something here?
Mhm. Yeah. I think right, like the systems have drained our creativity. So I think one of the signs, like if you're wondering, am I burnt out? It's when you feel like you can't create, like you can't even fathom something different. There is a lack of expansion. There's a lack of option. It's a feeling of stuck. It's a feeling of victimized. It's a feeling of like, just for me, it's paralyzation. And when I'm not creating, that is a clue that I am I'm burnt out. But when I'm like, oh, that's an option and this is an option, then that means that the energy's flowing through me. Um, at least, knowing those signs as a therapist and as a business owner is really important so that you can care for yourself and manage, to heal that so you can move more into your creation. Um, that's just like so crucial. And I love what you've been creating. So let's talk about some of the things that you've created. You've created a
Yeah.
book. You want to talk about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the book I created actually brings the grief experience, the mental health experience I have, with all of the tasks and the to-dos. So when I was executing, I found myself being like, but what's the to-do list for Zinnia Me listeners? You go on and you have like the lessons of like, do this and then do this and then do this.
Mhm.
And I was like, where's the version of that for this? I've done this before.
Mhm.
I'm leaving brain. Like, you're telling me these big words that I literally don't understand and I don't know what's involved. Can you just give me like 5 things that I need to do by our next appointment?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I wrote the book of that.
Mm.
So it's a workbook and a planner, but it takes you through with questions of being with your grief, of how do you honor it, of no, you're not going crazy. It feels like you're going crazy, but you're not. If you're having some of these symptoms, especially early on, like brain fog and confusion and irritability and mood swings, and like, okay, wait, I was a competent person and now I can barely brush my teeth,
Mhm.
or I can't call this person back. I'm not showing up for my appointments. What
Mhm.
happened to me?
Mhm.
And you're brain
Mhm.
and the overwhelm of all the tasks. And so when I work with people, and I invite people to use the book this way with people they work with, to be like, okay, so where are you in this? What's resonating for you?
Mhm.
How is
Mhm.
it also hard to ask for help,
Mhm.
like things you could just take a picture of and send, and how to kind of discern who to ask for help with what.
Mhm.
Oh, I call them trees in the book because I'm a big nature girl.
Mhm.
But like, some of our friends are great weeping willow friends. I can cry with them. They can come over. They would pick up the phone at 11 o'clock at night and not try to like fix my grief.
Mhm.
But not everybody's like that. So when I need that, who do I call? Or when I am trying to like, I have to get all the stuff out of this space within like a week's time. I can't manage this task. I have to like organize movers. I have to get people to come help. I have to get boxes. Who is a friend that's like super good at task management? I call
Mhm.
them oak trees. Can they come in and help?
Mhm.
Who are good at taking you out and having a good time, a little distraction. So that kind of stuff is in there too.
I love that. So you have the book, and what other things are you doing?
Yeah. So I have the book. I have some resources for low engagement for people that are just like, hey, I just need something now. I don't even have time to schedule a session.
Mhm.
I have individual one-on-one. I offer actually a 45-minute, just one time only, because I get when you're in the throes of it, you might not be at a place for longer term work, but you might want somebody to hold space, listen, and also help you discern what could be the
Step.
next couple.
Mhm.
So I offer that for people. Um, I have a package that I do that's for actually people who want to plan. Because one of the things that I've discovered, and for a couple of folks that I worked with, I've gotten calls of like, I scheduled this meeting with my parents and I want to talk to them and know their plans, but I don't actually know what I want to ask them
Mhm.
beyond like, have you done anything? And I was like, okay, we meet and we think through like, well, what are the pieces of this? And I do some what I think considers like psychoeducation about this stuff. And I have a work that comes with that. Or you're doing it for yourself and are like, I don't even know what to ask the attorney or the financial advisor for.
Mhm.
Um, and I have a group that's not being offered, but I call planning for peace because I think we do better when we do it together.
Mhm.
But I bring purpose into the planning. So we actually start with values and what
Mhm.
gives your life meaning and purpose, and who gives your life meaning and purpose.
I know that.
And that our legacy, like how we leave who we love, is our legacy.
Mhm.
It's so much more than a paper or a dollar.
Mhm.
It's like, and so, heart led at the beginning, little mini lessons with some work, and then virtual co-working over like a 6-week period where you come away with like, oh, okay, I thought I couldn't do this thing now. Yes, I can.
I love that. Megan, thank you for sharing your story. And I'm hoping that it helps people just even consider of how they can shift their practice and listen to it and what it's saying that it really wants. And also just allowing each of ourselves to have permission to change when we are
Mm.
change, because our business is an extension. It's a reflection of who we are and our values. And as we shift, so should our business. And it is okay. Like what you had is going to be different 5, 10 years from now as you go through different phases of your life, different traumas in your life, different wins in your life. Your business will also shape around that too. And I love hearing that because I remember when your parents passed, and I remember just thinking, oh my God, I don't know how you can take any more. Like it was just, and it felt like rapid succession and shocking. And to see you now on this other side of like having taken that pain and learned from it and integrated it so well that now it becomes a piece of how that's the legacy, right? Of how you now serve. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, oh, thank you for having me. It's
If,
my story.
if people want to get in touch with you, what's your website?
A-new-path.com.
Okay. All right. Please share this with people you love and colleagues you know. And if you are a person who works in grief or that you have clients going through grief, check out Megan's resources. They can be really supportive on a practical and emotional level as they are working with you as well. All right. Until next time. Everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today, I'm joined with Jessica Peters, an MFT in California, to talk about building a private practice. The good, the hard, the wonderful, the challenging. We're going to cover it all today. Welcome, Jessica. Yeah. Well, let's start at the beginning. Why private practice? Mm, mhm. Well, how did you make that leap from where you were to starting? Yeah. Mhm. You feel like you had burnout from agency work? Mhm. Mhm. Right. I think when you need a job or your career or work should enhance your life, not also pull from it. And so when you're already being pulled in other ways of life, and then to have your work where you spend like a good part of your day, like draining you, that's a struggle. What have you found to be the most challenging of building your practice? Mhm. 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 Right. Especially, well, I appreciate you being honest about it because I think that some people will find the logistics very challenging and other people find the like that stuff is relieving because it's like a checkbox. Like I did it and it's done. Versus the part of building, it's never done. That like even when you are completely full, then you're still marketing to sustain and there's always work to be done. And so it's like finding your rhythm and flow. What was it like when you got your first client though? Right. Mhm. Mhm. What do you feel has been your biggest win so far? Mhm. Mhm. So, where do you find is your next focus in the building phase? Mhm. Mhm. I think it's really good for people to hear different stories of starting and kind of timelines because we're talking about like you just hit publish on your website in February. Now, many people would think like, oh, then it's a done deal, but that's just like the first iteration, kind of one page, and it's got to grow from there. And it takes Google a while. How long did it take you to get the nuts and bolts in order for you and your circumstance with two young kids? Hmm. Yeah, you're starting from zero, scratch for sure. Yeah. So, how long did it take you to get some of the nuts and bolts together for you to be able to now start marketing your practice? Mhm, 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 mhm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. It's just not getting more clear. I think that that's really important too. It's something we teach in business school of how your marketing will change as you get more feedback, especially from clients and you get your clinical outcomes. That information from your clinical outcomes will go into your marketing. And as well as when you're networking and you're finding the need and you hear how people talk about the pain points, that'll also go into your marketing. I would love to do another podcast with you after you book your first client so that we can talk about the process of like booking your first client. Would you be willing to do that with me? Okay. I think that would be cool. What encouragement do you have for someone who is wanting to make the leap into their private practice and they're coming from like this, working full time and maybe have kids or just have a lot of life? Like, what kind of words of wisdom do you have for them? Mhm, 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 mhm. Yes. Mhm. Yeah, I think it's important though for people to hear from people in the beginning because so often you'll see like testimonials or people talking about like built my practice in 6 months, but you don't have a context of like how that happened or why. And when you're just starting out, and then that feels like such a leap, but it's good for people to hear your story right at the beginning. And I love that we're going to do a follow up to see like how it's evolved. So if people want to learn more about you, where can they find your information? Awesome. Thank you, Jessica, for being here. And for those of you who are starting out, I'm excited for you to hear. Like, I love Jessica's advice here of like celebrating the small wins, and instead of letting it be your caseload or your income that determines what you celebrate, every action you take is worthy of honor and attention and care because that is the foundation that you are setting. When you are starting out, you have an opportunity to set the foundation well. And sometimes that takes a little bit more time. Sometimes it takes a little bit more intention than what you have planned for. But if you are starting out, you are some of the luckiest people because so often people come to us that have like built their practice and are like, oh, this is not what I wanted. And we have to take it all down and kind of rebuild it. But if you're starting out, you can start out really well now. So we'll see you next time on the podcast. Thanks so much, Jessica.